You are marrying a man who whispers love vows in your ear, assures you that you are the only one, that no one can take your place. You believe because you want to believe. You have waited too long for this to be true, but here you are, in court, before a judge, before a crowd of strangers, and your husband, the man you once loved more than anything in the world, doesn't even look in your direction. Case number 14-023, divorce between Madeline Crawford and Grayson Crawford. The clerk's voice echoes heavily in your temples. Grayson sits in a chair, idly tapping his fingers on the table. His mother, Ruth Crawford, purses her lips, appraisingly glancing at me. And next to him is Vanessa Langley, his new woman, in a perfectly fitted gray suit with a playful smile on her face. I can feel their mockery even without words. "Your demands, Mrs. Crawford?" asks the judge, a man in his 50s with attentive but cold eyes. I swallow. My fingers clench on the hem of an old blue dress that has seen too much rain and tears. "He cheated on me," I say, trying to keep my voice steady. Grayson smirks. "We've been living separately for a long time," he replies. "She doesn't meet my standards." I notice Vanessa covering her mouth, hiding a smirk. But then Grayson does something I didn't expect. He leans in a little closer and loud enough for everyone to hear says, "And who would want to live with such a working girl?" Laughter echoes through the room. I feel something inside me cracking, but not from pain. No, I don't feel pain. I feel anger. Silently, I unbutton the buttons on the old dress. The courtroom falls silent. With one movement, I let the fabric slide off my shoulders, falling to my feet. And suddenly, everyone sees the real me. Under the old dress is another, dark turquoise with an elegant silhouette and a deep neckline. It fits me perfectly, accentuating the lines of my body. This dress I bought when I still believed I would have a life. But now it's not a matter of belief. I take a step forward, and at that moment, there is absolute silence in the courtroom. Olivia sat in the bus, holding a business card in her hands. She felt the slight vibration of the engine, but all her thoughts were focused on one thing. What now? The divorce was inevitable. Grayson could no longer hurt her, but that didn't mean life would automatically improve. Olivia looked out the window, watching the streets rush by. Autumn was slowly taking over. Yellow leaves swirled in the air, and the wind tousled the hair of passers-by. The bus braked sharply, jerking her forward. "Be careful, miss," came the voice of an elderly man. Olivia forced a polite smile, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She looked at the business card again. Michael Chandler. The name sounded impressive. But who was he? Why did he need her portrait? On the other hand, she had no choice. The divorce would take a lot of money, and a good job, a chance to stay afloat. Olivia took out her phone and dialed the number. The ring seemed to drag on endlessly. "Chandler." The male voice was clear, confident. Olivia swallowed. "Hello, this is Olivia Crawford. We met in court. You gave me your business card." "Yes, of course. Have you thought about my offer?" She paused. "I agree." "Excellent." There was approval in his voice. "Are you free tonight? I'd like to discuss the details." Olivia glanced at her reflection in the bus window, still in the same blue dress she wore to court. "I'm free." "Then come to my house at 7. I'll send you the address." The bus pulled up to her stop. Olivia put her phone in her pocket, took a deep breath, and stepped out onto the street. The house she arrived at turned out to be a real mansion. High wrought iron gates, a path bathed in the soft light of lanterns. A 2-story building with huge windows through which the warm light shone. Olivia clutched the handle of her bag. She had never been to such places. Hesitating at the front door, she took a deep breath and knocked. The door was opened by Michael Chandler himself. He was taller than she remembered, tall, restrained, in an expensive dark blue suit. But that wasn't what surprised her. There was no arrogance in his eyes, only attentiveness. "Miss Crawford," he invited her inside with a gesture. "I'm glad you came." Olivia entered. The interior of the house was stylish but not ostentatious. Expensive furniture, books on shelves, paintings on walls. Here lived not just a rich family, but people with taste. Have you been involved in art for a long time? Michael asked as they walked into the living room. Since childhood, but seriously, only in recent years, Olivia admitted. He nodded. I want you to paint a portrait of my son. Olivia didn't immediately know what to say. Your son? Yes, Michael smiled. Edwin. At that moment, a boy ran into the room, about 7 years old, blonde, with huge blue eyes. He stopped, noticing Olivia. Is this the artist? He asked with unconcealed curiosity. Yes, Edwin. This is Miss Crawford. Olivia couldn't help but smile. Nice to meet you. The boy squinted slyly. Can you draw dragons? She laughed. If you want, I'll draw you with a dragon. Edwin beamed. Dad, let's do it. Michael chuckled. We'll see. Olivia watched their interaction. There was something different about this man. He didn't seem cold and indifferent, like Grayson. On the contrary, there was something genuine about him. When can we start? She asked. Even tomorrow, Michael replied. After dinner, Michael led her to the exit. Olivia, he suddenly said as she was about to leave. She turned around. Yes? He hesitated, then said, You look different than you did in court. She froze. What do you mean? There in court you were strong, decisive, as if you knew what you wanted. And now, he fell silent. She felt her heart tighten. He was right. The court was a battle for her. But what next? She was no longer a wife. But who was she now? Michael, as if reading her thoughts, added, You are stronger than you think. She didn't know what to say. She just nodded and walked into the night, feeling that her life was about to change forever. Olivia woke up earlier than usual. In her head, she still heard Michael's words. You are stronger than you think. She sat on the edge of the bed, looking at her hands. But was it really so? Over the past time, she had lost everything. Her marriage, illusions, confidence in tomorrow. But something in this new stage of life excited her. Perhaps this was a chance to start over. Olivia arrived at the Chandler mansion right on time. When she entered the house, she was met by a cold, impeccably groomed woman. You're late, she said in an icy voice. But I arrived on time. Olivia frowned. The woman measured her with a contemptuous glance. I am Stella. I am Michael's second wife. Olivia felt something unpleasantly tighten inside her. Second wife. For some reason, she immediately understood. This woman didn't like her. Stella looked at her clothes, a simple dark dress and comfortable boots, and smirked. You will work here. But remember, I don't like strangers. I hope you won't cause any trouble. Her words sounded like a threat, but Olivia didn't show it. I'm only here for the work. Stella measured her with another glance but said nothing. There was something strange about this woman, as if she was hiding something. When Olivia entered the spacious living room, she was greeted by Edwin. Hi, I'm ready for the portrait. Olivia laughed. Great, then let's begin. She laid out the paints, preparing for work. But at that moment, an elderly man entered the room. Gray hair, stern gaze, but something warm in his eyes. Are you the artist? He asked, looking at her. Yes. And you? Calvin Crossman, Edwin's grandfather. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. This man was different, wise, but there was worry in his eyes, as if he knew something. Do you have something to say? She asked cautiously. Calvin looked at her for a long time, then quietly said, Be careful. Not everything in this house is as it seems. She froze. What do you mean? He leaned closer and whispered, Do you trust Michael? Olivia didn't know what to answer. Calvin sighed. It doesn't matter. Time will tell. And he left the room, leaving her alone with her thoughts. Unexpected discovery. Later, when Edwin had fallen asleep, Olivia decided to go out into the garden to get some fresh air. She walked along the path when she heard a dull thud. She turned around. Something glinted in the depths of the garden, in the shade of the trees. Olivia took a step forward, and then she saw a box, old, wooden, partially buried in the ground. She leaned down, pulled it out, and carefully opened the lid. Inside were letters. Olivia took one out and unfolded it. On the yellowed paper were the words, You will never know the truth. She felt her heart race. What did this mean? At that moment, a voice sounded behind her back. What are you doing there? She turned around and saw Stella. Her eyes narrowed. You shouldn't be here. Olivia clutched the letter in her hands. She knew she had found something important, but she didn't yet understand how important. Olivia couldn't sleep. She sat in her small apartment, holding the old letters she had found in the Chandler garden. You will never know the truth. These words burned her fingers. Who wrote them? And for whom? She felt she had stumbled upon something dark. But what exactly? The next morning, Olivia went to work early. The Chandler house was quiet. Edwin was still asleep, Michael had left on business, and Stella, thankfully, had disappeared somewhere. She decided to take advantage of this and inspect the garden. She returned to the spot where she found the box and began digging further. Her fingers trembled as she felt another package. Unwrapping it, she felt a chill run down her spine. Old, faded, but they depicted Stella. Only, she didn't look like she did now. She was with another man. They stood together, he hugged her, and in the background was a sign, Moonlight Investments. Olivia frowned. She had heard that name somewhere before. When she returned to the house, Calvin was sitting in the living room. You don't look rested, Miss Olivia, he noted. She sighed. I found something. She handed him the photographs. The old man carefully examined them. Then his gaze became sharp. Where did you find this? In the garden. There under the ground was an old box. Calvin paled. God, it's him. Who? He looked at her. Her first husband. Olivia shuddered. What? She said he was dead. But I never believed her. Now I understand why. Olivia felt her heart skip a beat. Are you saying Stella was lying? Calvin grimly nodded. And I think she's hiding something bigger. At that moment, the front door swung open forcefully. Standing in the doorway was Michael. What's going on? His gaze darted between Olivia and Calvin. Olivia hastily hid the photographs. Nothing. Just discussing the portrait. Michael squinted but didn't insist. Olivia, I need to talk to you. She nodded and followed him into the office. You've been working in our house for a long time, he began, sitting down in a chair. Less than a week, she reminded him. Yes, but I have a feeling I've known you longer. He fell silent. Did something happen? She asked cautiously. Michael rubbed his forehead, then looked at her for a long time. Do you trust Stella? Olivia almost dropped the photographs. And you? He was silent for a long time. Number Olivia's heart pounded. Why? Michael stood up and walked to the window. She has changed, become secretive, cold. I feel that something is not right. He turned to her. I found documents, a contract with Moonlight Investments. It is signed in my name. You didn't sign it? Number Olivia clenched her fingers. Stella had forged his signature. And that's not all, Michael continued. She often talks on the phone. At night. I don't know with whom, but once I overheard part of the conversation. Olivia tensed. What was she talking about? He looked her straight in the eye. She said that soon, everything will be ready. Olivia remembered the notes she had made. Michael doesn't know. Everything is going according to plan. We will get rid of him. Michael, she whispered, I think she wants to frame you. He froze. Why do you think so? Olivia took a deep breath. I saw something, and I think you need to see it. She handed him a flash drive with the recording. Michael turned on his laptop, and the video started playing. Stella's voice echoed through the room. We will get rid of him. I have already found a way. Olivia saw Michael's face contort in shock. He slowly turned to her. Olivia, she wants to kill me. His voice trembled. Suddenly, footsteps sounded from the corridor. They froze. The door swung open, and standing in the doorway was Stella. She looked at them with an empty, icy expression. Oh, so you already know everything, huh? In her hand was a gun. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. Michael slowly stood up. You really were going to do it? Stella smirked. Darling, it's too late to ask questions. Time seemed to stand still. Olivia felt cold sweat running down her back. Stella stood in the doorway, aiming the gun straight at Michael. There was no fear or regret in her eyes, only determination. You didn't think you could stop me. Stella's voice was soft, almost gentle. Olivia stole a glance at Michael. He was shocked. His face paled, but he held himself together. I don't understand, he whispered. Oh, darling, you were just too naive. She shook her head as if talking to a foolish child. I've been waiting for this moment for too long, and now no one can stop me. But why? Michael finally asked, taking a step forward. Stella didn't move. She just smirked. You really want to know? She tilted her head, watching his reaction. All right, then I'll tell you a story. She leaned her head, observing his reaction. Many years ago, there was a man. He trusted everyone, believed in justice. He thought the world was fair, but one day his world collapsed. Olivia felt her heart race. Stella was talking not only about Michael, she was talking about herself. Your father, Michael, ruined my family. Stella's voice became low, almost a whisper. My father was innocent. He just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But your father, he did everything to put him in jail. He took everything away from me. She gripped the gun tighter. You think I married you just like that? She laughed. Michael couldn't speak. He was in shock. It was part of my plan. She took a step forward. I waited for years, and finally I got the chance to take revenge. Olivia looked at her in horror. You're crazy. Stella turned to her. Oh dear, you have no idea how much. At that moment, footsteps sounded in the corridor. Calvin. He stood at the door, his eyes burning with anger. You can't hide the truth, girl, he said in a voice filled with steel. Too late, old man, Stella hissed. Everything is already decided. She aimed the gun at Michael again. Goodbye, darling. A shot rang out. Olivia screamed. But at the same moment, Calvin lunged forward, hitting Stella's arm. The bullet flew past, shattering the window glass. The gun flew out of Stella's hand and clattered to the floor. Run, Calvin shouted. Olivia grabbed Michael's hand and they rushed to the door. But Stella didn't give up. She lunged forward, grabbing a knife from the table. I won't let you get away. She pounced on Michael, aiming for his chest. But at the last moment, Calvin shielded him with his body. The knife plunged into his side. Olivia screamed, No! Calvin fell to the floor, his face contorted in pain. Stella froze. What? She didn't finish. Michael hit her. A powerful blow to the jaw sent her crashing to the floor. She screamed, losing consciousness. At that moment, police officers burst into the house. Olivia didn't understand where they came from. She felt everything around her spinning. Voices, noise, people. But she looked only at one thing. Calvin lay on the floor, his breathing weak. Hold on, Olivia pleaded, pressing his wound. You did well, girl, he whispered. You uncovered the truth. Olivia felt tears well up in her eyes. I need you, Calvin. The old man smiled. You'll manage. The police grabbed Stella, putting handcuffs on her. She no longer resisted. Her face was pale, and her eyes were empty. This isn't the end, she whispered before being taken away. But for Olivia, it was the end. The end of lies, the end of fear, the end of the old life. 3 months had passed. Olivia stood by the hospital bed, watching Calvin. He was recovering, her heart filled with joy. He had survived. You are amazing, Michael said, approaching from behind. Olivia smiled. I just did what I had to do. He took her hand. I want you to stay. She looked at him. Here with me. She was silent for a long time, and then she nodded. Yes. Michael smiled. Olivia felt a sense of peace for the first time in a long time. Now she knew. Her nightmare was over. But most importantly, her new life was just beginning.